Thank you very much. Really, thanks. So now you can start the presentation, but you know the story of Rajasthan. Rajasthan is a desert of India where is the lowest rainfall and sometime the cloud burst or flood also coming and drought is there because uh, the clouds is sometime coming and fighting. So that time, sometime in a 100 year, one time or two time is the cloud burst and flood. So today I am sharing first my global experience in last 8 years. I work African countries, more than uh, 40 countries, and Europe and Middle East, Central Middle East. So I seen my eyes is really very much bothered now because the one hand stress of water and other hand surplus of water. So you can say one side drought and the other side flood. So this work is going on. We have the experience in last more than 40 years, more than 4 decades. Uh, when I start the work, that time nobody, no youth living in that region. The youth is displaced because no water. And I learn from the local community. The local community relies me for water, and I start the water with the indigenous knowledge system. So, uh, next slide. Next slide, you can show uh, this. The today is a really the biggest crisis of future is a world war is coming because one hand drought and the other hand flood. So the both is a disaster. So people is displaced and moving toward. And the environmentalists have been living in anger, seeing governments and they are not really coping with the government and with the corporate. So today is a really a big challenge for us. One hand, the government, and other hand is environmentalist and activist, and other hand is our UN system is also involved in this work. You know the UNCCD, but that is not showing the impact. So people is really displacing from Western Asia, Central Asia, Africa, and they are moving toward uh, the where the water. So the without water people moving they where the water. So this is a real great challenge for us and for our common future because the we see the in our common future is a great disaster. One hand without water and some people with water, they are fighting each other globally. Before the two world war, they are the world war in a vertical one side like this, they're fighting. But this world war is not vertical. This world war is a horizontal everywhere. One hand the water, and one hand the flood, and one hand is the scarcity of water. So I know these challenges. We accept the challenge. We explore the solution. Next slide. The solution is now where the flood, so we can catch the flood water, take and harvest for recharging the aquifer. So the water crisis is global, but problem solution is local. The local and community driven decentralized management. So today is the need of water literacy and the literacy of aquifers and literacy of surplus and stress and minus. So now, one hand we can start with the conservation, and the other hand, efficient use and skill development of efficient use. So you need a water literacy movement. So today, the world need a community managed aquifer recharging by the rainwater. Next, in my country today, the seven state they are facing the water scarcity, and 100 district facing the flood. Next, the global scenario. The global scenario, the most of the part of flood and most of the part is drought, and sometimes the same place, same time is drought and flood simultaneously. So this is a very, very serious disaster for this world. Next slide. In my country, the 72% underground aquifer is overdraft. So we start the recharge the aquifer, and now my area, they are full with water and they are growing crops, no drought, no flood. So the drought and flood is the two sides of the one coin. If we conserve the water and recharging the aquifer, so we address the both problem, the flood and drought. Next slide. My first water body, there is the confined vertical fractures, and second, under the second water body is the mixed fractures. So if we understand the aquifer, if we understand the relation with the fractures and aquifer and soil um, geology or morphology, or we can understand the typology of the soil, so we can make it easy the flood water we can recharge by the water bodies is the aquifer. Next slide. If we are really working on the flood water for recharging, so we understand the geology of the full river basin. So in my country, my river have the three type of the basin, three type of the geology. Next slide. In my river basin, hydrology unit, the three type of the unit. Next slide. The six type of the condition of in my river, whole river. So these six type of the aquifer in the whole river basin. So first we understand one aquifer, one small aquifer, and one place typology and one region. And after that, we understand the full river basin typology and geology of the river. Because the one unit or one aquifer is not enough. The one basin have a different type of the aquifers. So we can do the aquifer mapping. If we can complete the aquifer mapping, so very easy recharging the aquifer. Next slide. This aquifer is community-driven, decentralized water management and community-based operation. And I use always local material and local resource and on decision taken by my community and my pupil. Next slide. The illiterate pupil is also choosing the site for the recharging of aquifer. They select the water body and they are doing exercise on the first try on the paper or on the earth by transact the reason. So if they identify the site and a site for the recharging the aquifer, that is very important part. And that is possible by the resource mapping and aquifer mapping. Next slide. If we have the steep slopes, so we make a convex design water body, because if we make a convex design water body, so no need of the iron, no need of the steel, no need of the cement. The local material, stone and lime content, we built the structure, and that simple local material and local wisdom we are using, just change the design. The all design basis of natural uh, contours and aquifers. Next slide. Uh, where the natural depression, we make a concave design structure. And where the gentle slope, next slide, there we make a straight structure. And where the steep slope, we make a convex structure. So we save the resource. We say we not need the external resource. We use the local resource and we construct the all water bodies for the recharging the aquifer. Next. And these water body conserve the flood water and recharging the aquifers. But these different design, the water bodies design based on agroecological climatic diversity. If we understand the diversity of the agroecological climate, so we can understand the character of the aquifer, so we can make a very simple way and a very simple science, and not a rocket science. You need a science with sense, and that the science with sense we use and recharging the aquifer. And now our river is flowing. Next. By these water bodies, only we create the 13,800 water bodies, but 250,000 well is recharged, and 10,800 square kilometer area who is before without water, now they have the water. And the 1,700,000 people who before displaced without water, they come back on the land and they are doing agriculture and animal husbandry, because they conserve the water and recharge the aquifer, and they control the evaporation loss. If you not recharging the aquifer, so you not control the evaporation loss. So recharging the underground aquifer, you are controlling the evaporation loss. Next slide. Before is my river is dry, we create a small water bodies where the water is flash flooding. So we say to the water now walking. And where the water walking, we conserve, we catch the water and putting the underground aquifers. So where the flash flooding, we say to water can walk. So water is walking. After the walking the water, we catch the water and putting the underground aquifers. So aquifer recharge. Next, you can see the contrast. Before, the people is using this river like road. These not a road, this is the river where the people migrating from the rural area to urban area for drinking water and for food and for employment. So before the all youth is displaced from the rural area to urban area, and now this river is flowing. So the all youth reverse and the reverse migration is start, and people is doing very nicely agriculture. You can see the both photograph is the 20th February. One photograph is the upper photograph is the 20th February in 1985, and the down photograph is 20th February 2000. So you can see the change, the face of earth, and you can see the change of the flow of river. Now this river is perennial, flowing with water, and both sides is greenery and mustard flowering. So this is the change the face of earth in my region, and change the face of people both. So the humankind and earth is happy. Next slide. You can see the same river in a downstream. Before this tree, when I start the work, that time that tree is in the red, and now this is the green tree in green cover. So you can see the contracts and change the ecology and ecosystem there. And now this river is perennial and flow. Before there no water in this river. River is completely die. So this is the big change by the underground aquifer recharge. Next. You know, when we got the water prize from Stockholm, so that time lot of engineers against me. They are saying this award going only for engineers. But Rajendra Singh is not an engineer. Why this award they are giving to him? So in Government of India, a National Remote Sensing Center, Hyderabad, they done the impact and they saw the impact of the science. You know, the red color is the green, and they written immense increased vegetation is clearly in the region. So when this greenery increase, so carbon sequestration and that carbon putting in the soil. So the due to the climate, due to the crop pattern with the nature, and the farmers start a river parliament, and that parliament make a rule the all crops lowest water they are using, and energy not using so low, they are using very less energy for water because the water is available. So the very good agriculture growing. So this is the impact you can see in remote sensing. These slides saying the whole story. If you are conserving the water and putting the soil and putting the ground aquifer, so that water is a really deposit in your RB reserve bank of water. You are creating a reserve bank of water. So that is the way by the recharging the aquifer. Next slide. I think this work needed with the indigenous knowledge system and recharging the aquifer. We control the flood and drought both by this knowledge system, and mobilize the community uh, around the water, and the all decision taken by the stakeholders, and that community aquifers managed by institution we are creating by the community level. So due to the community level, so they make some regulations for the, and you can say they make some discipline for the protecting the aquifers with water. Next slide. I think now a very most important part is we can make a sustainable aquifer management by ridge to valley approach. We can start from higher, and we see the character of aquifer, and we recharge the underground aquifer, and that recharge by the identification of aquifer and efficient use of water. stop erosion and silting, and linking crop pattern with rain pattern. That is the very important thing. Because if you are growing the crops with more water, and for we not have the more water, so we can make a prosperity for everywhere, for nature and for humanity. So we make a discipline for the crop pattern, and we make a link with the rain pattern. Next slide. He is my teacher, the without cloth. The without cloth, that old man is my teacher, who teach me the science with sense, and technology and engineering with consciousness and concern of nature and humankind. He not have the word for in vocabulary, so he putting in the well and he's showing the way. He not give the way of teaching or training. He just create an atmosphere. We can learn, and I learn with him, and I start the work. So now is the big change in my region. Next slide. Before in 1985, very high level erosion. Now they are growing vegetables, flowers, and the greenery is coming everywhere. So this is the big change. Next, we are growing agriculture with organic farming. We are not using the machines. We are not using the chemical and fertilizer or pesticides. We are free chemicals, free pesticides, free herbicides. We are growing, and we are also protecting the trees. The trees and crops, both simultaneously we are growing. Next. The before the story of Tarun Bharat's work, water conservation along with community, and its impact climate change through adaptation and mitigation in last more than uh, uh, more than 3.5 decades in this region. Next slide. Before, the only evaporation from the Arabian Sea, and that red heat changed to the water of the ocean in a blue heat. So the red heat changed in blue heat, and that blue heat moving toward to the green heat. So these clouds now moving where the forest, and when the blue heat coming up on the green heat, so both is simultaneously discharged, same time discharge. Next slide. The blue heat and green heat, same time discharge. So you can say this is the rains. So now the clouds giving the water. But where the mining and where the destruction, my area under the mining of marble, dolomite, and granite. So I fight against that mining, that destruction in 80s and 90s. And my Supreme Court, I am the petitioner, and I fight and stop the mining in that region. And when after the stopping the mining, the green ring come up and conserving the water and recharging the aquifer. So you can say the cloud formation on the sea due to the blue heat travel meet to the microclouds, and formation due to the green heat resulting rains in green area in my region. Now next slide. I told you we create the 13,800 water body, but that time no continuous rain. So my water bodies in the beginning is dry. So we capture the water and divert in the green area, in the forest area. Next slide. So we take the flood water from the forest area in my water bodies. So the flood water capture in my water bodies, and that water body is created on the aquifer, related with the aquifer. So the all water moving in the aquifer. Next slide. So due to the agriculture and recharging the aquifers, the lot of agriculture and the greenery of agriculture. So the trans-evaporation and evaporation of water bodies making microclouds. And these evaporation and trans-evaporation, these microclouds invite to the macro clouds. Next slide. So the macro clouds come from Arabian Sea, and in my region, now the small micro clouds and they join. So now is the very good rains in my region. Very good, very natural, very nice rains, and they are doing agriculture. Next slide. Very good rains. Now is a now due to the increase in greenery vegetation and cloud formation, there has been marked increase in rainfall in this region since 1985. So now is a very good rains and very good crops. Next, if the greenery is there, so the red heat not coming on the land. In the California is a dead valley. There is the barren land. So the lot of heat coming directly and temperature going high. So there people can't live. But if you create a greenery and you make a water body recharging the aquifer, so that is invite the greenery and the red heat not going to the earth. The red heat is that heat reflected, and how much heat we need the coming in the on the ground. So my area, the 1 to 3 degree temperature is going down. So this is the big change in my region. Next slide. Now, if you replicate this Indian model in the context of the California, so the water holding capacity of soil is less in your region. So you make a where the water runs, so that water going in the aquifers and recharging the aquifers. So we make that type of the water bodies. The running water, rapid runoff must be made to walk, and that should be made crawl, and clouding water should be drive groundwater aquifer, filling the empty valley of the afforestation and water conservation existing water bodies and green cover. So consider the local ecology, rainfall, and terrain for making, carving other structures to make a flow of water. We make a slow of the flood water and capture and putting the underground aquifer. Next, these photographs, this is the story. So I am not explaining this story. This is the old man showing me the underground aquifers. Next slide. There is the vertical, confined vertical fractures. So we recharge that aquifers. Next. So when the water capture and recharging the aquifer. Next. Indra Ben. Next. Next.
Yes.
मैं एक प्रेजेंटेशन में बैठा हूं अमेरिका के लिए, थोड़ी देर बाद बात करूं। So this is the real presentation, the real, in my area, what type of the water body recharging the underground aquifer, and now its river is flowing. So that is the way of exploring the solution. If you can replicate and scaling up the Indian experience in California, I can say one thing. Your California agroecological climatic reason is, and the aquifers, not a difference of the rocket, a very small difference. So we can replicate this model in your country if you like. Next slide. I can say, if you are starting the aquifer recharge, so you are also can say the water is climate and climate is water. So the Tarun Bharat Sangh globally established the climate change is possible, accepted. Now in 2015, when I got the award of Stockholm, so that time I speak in Paris Agreement. So the Paris Agreement also accept this, water is climate and climate is water. So we can say it is possible if we can start in California. The problem is global, but solution is local. So thank you very much, Mike. You can ask the question. I take little more time, but yes, you can ask a question and your team can ask question.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Rajendra. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. I do want to make sure that people on the call who may have questions to drop them in chat. I have a few at my end, so if you want to be raising your hands and asking questions live, we'll do some hands in just a few minutes. But Rajendra, I wonder if you'd be willing to talk just for a few minutes about the People's World Commission on Drought and Flood that was announced back in September.
Yes, yes. The people of Drought and Flood Commission, in a Stockholm, a convention, the World Convention, the people come from world over. But this year, the lot of drought and flood everywhere in Europe also. So the people of Europe, they are demanding they can explore the path and explore the solution of this drought and flood. So, if the UN creating a commission, so they explore the people who can write the reports, but they are the real people who is fighting drought, facing the drought and flood. So they say we not need the report, we need the solution, we need the practice. What is the way we can do the solution for this drought and flood? So they make a commission. This commission is a three-tier commission. The one is a commissioners. The only 19 commissioners with me, 20 commissioners from all over the world. They are searching who can do this work, and the really experienced people who is practicing for the flood water can recharge the aquifer, and they can give the solution of flood and drought both. The flood and drought is the two sides of the one coin. So these one layer is a commission, and second is the advisory council. So more than 165 persons who is really interested in the practicing for the solution of drought and flood. So this is also now the under searching the people who is interested in this practice. And third, a stakeholders, that is called General Assembly. So that who is really stakeholder and who is really facing this drought and flood, and they are really trying for the solution. So that type of the people is in the General Assembly. So the three tier this commission, and this commission is now very, very seriously preparing the action. And the first meeting we call in India, the 8th and 9th and 10th December at the city of Udaipur. That is, the city of Udaipur is the lake city in India. So there is the first meeting. Second meeting in Delhi, because the some out of the country, a lot of people coming. So they are sitting in Delhi. And third is Bangladesh, and fourth is Pakistan. So this is the start the in a we are very big way. I request to you, Mick. I request to you, Mick. I really request to you, you also join with this commission. So you are a you have a real worry for the recharging the aquifer. So like you is AFIN commission. So we feel proud.
Well, thank you, Rajendra. I see your colleague Indira has her hand up. Indira, do you want to add something?
Yes, Mike, may I take a couple of minutes to just add on to what Dr.
Of
Singh
course.
has said? So,
Yes, of course.
yeah, just in the interest of full disclosure, I'm the vice chair of Tarun Bharat Sangh, and I have been watching their work for more than, I think, 3 decades now. And I think each time I go and see the work, there's a new facet that comes out of this work, which is now almost 3 decades old. I think what I understood was the power of the small structures, like how a small structure can bring a difference in the local area. And when it brings that difference, I mean, the kind of ripple effect or the domino effect, if you will, that happens. Water comes, agriculture comes, people come back, forests thrive, biodiversity comes, wildlife have water, poaching was reduced because now there was water everywhere. Earlier, there were a few designated spots where the forest department would put water. So, and actually, the sense of peace and security, and not having to worry about leaving your family and packing off and going into hostile environments, searching for daily wages. I think the other thing was which I understood was the power of making structures in a contiguous manner, these small structures, which was shown in the map which Dr. Singh showed. So when you have, in a contiguous, on a stream or a channel, contiguous small structures, these all add up. And when these add up, you have such a recharged groundwater aquifer, which then provides base flows to the river. And then the river is recharged. I think also the power of small streams and channels which feed into larger rivers. I think that also, you could see how significant that was. And this was also highlighted by then Prime Minister of Germany, Angela Merkel, when she visited the devastated areas after that horrible rainfall. And that time the scientists realized that they did not focus on the small rivers and streams. And if they would have focused on that, then the protective measures and the utilization of that water would have been better. I think the power of the local community, because they are the ones who are affected the most, and they are the ones who will benefit the most. And I think in case of California also, this is extremely relevant. Also, what was very sad for me to realize that with this increase now in the duration, intensity, frequency of drought and flood, rain, which is actually the biggest primary source of water, had suddenly turned villain because your earth was bald due to deforestation and other activity. The water was not being absorbed, which I think happened in the case of California when you had a heavy rainfall. And so this soil eroded and it went in, downstream, it went and filled up areas, and that caused floods. So rather than actually understanding the power of water, the rainwater, it was now turning villain. So it's really important to, reset this equation. And the cushioning impact that happened because of these structures. I mean, these are literally sponges waiting to absorb the rain that fell. And it was interesting for me to read a couple of days ago. The Time magazine has covered a concept called Sponge City in Austria and other parts, where they are building these structures, and they are saying that these structures will not, will at least reduce the intensity of the floods that are there, and then this water can be used, stored in the aquifers, and then this water can be used during, will be used during lean periods. So this concept, which was done by a local communities about 3 decades ago, this whole concept of making sponges, is now being looked at by some of the cities, and this water will be used for greenery also. So, and for the landscape. So these were just some of the points I thought I would just highlight, and really would like to. I'm also part of the commission. Would be great if you all could be with us in this journey, and also an invitation to come to our meeting in Udaipur. Thank you, Mike, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Indira. Those are great additions to the conversation. I was really taken by one of your slides, Rajendra, talking about that the way out is water ethics, justice, and peace. And when you received your water prize, the part of what the prize committee said was, and this is a quote: "Today's water problems cannot be solved by science or technology alone. They are instead human problems of governance, policy, leadership, and social resilience." And this is one of the things I'm most interested in hearing you reflect a little bit on, about what impact the communities themselves have felt from the act of recovering their water landscapes. I'm curious if you can just talk a little bit about how community coherence and resilience has been built through the work that they've done together.
Yeah, yes. Thank you. You remind me. You remember that. Thank you very much. Nice. Yes. Today is, if we can integrate the science and technology with the community. So now is the need, the integration of our science and technology with the wisdom of community, so we can make a sustainable system for recharging and for availability of water. Thank you very much. You remember that. I just say to Indira, Indira can request you for commission, and she can discuss with you if we really like if you join that commission.
Well, I really appreciate the offer, and I definitely do want to have that conversation. Another question I'd ask before I turn to some of the ones that are coming in the chat is, often I see a lot of your presentation here talking about indigenous practices, and that is something that our part of the world here in California is starting to think more carefully about, and engaging with communities that remember sort of the pre-modern way of managing and having relations with the landscape. However, those practices are very often hard to quantify, right? And I think the sum of your activity has huge impact, but any one activity may only have small impact. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about how you've built confidence in each act being meaningful, knowing that many actions together are very meaningful.
Yeah. Yes. If you are practicing what is the felt need of the region and felt need of the community, so the community and the ecosystem, you can understand. And if you understand the whole things, so the decision is really comes to forward is a really appropriate. The sometime the site selection for the recharging the aquifer and capture the water, that is some people, some community taking vested interest. for the capturing the water the near the land, the own land, but there is no aquifer. So if you know that science and you know the community, so your decision is very important and appropriate for the recharging the aquifer. You understand the community is not, you can't say that they are never thinking the vested interest. They are also thinking about the vested interest. But if you have the sense and science and common sense, so your decision is really, really sustainable.
Thank you, Rajendra. I do see one question in the chat from Daniel. Daniel, do you want to voice that question, or would you like me to handle it?
Sure, I can come on. Yeah, thank you. That was a great presentation, Dr. Singh. The question I have is similar to what Mike just asked, which is when you showed one of the slides showing that the recharge at the top end of the watershed benefits further and further down the system. How did you organize the structure and perhaps even pay for work that was done in one location that would benefit another location?
Yes, that is very easy way. If the you know the flowing in the underground aquifers, if you know the here is the confined vertical fractures, and these confined vertical fracture taking water and linking with the downstream aquifer. So the all upper water recharging the downstream aquifer and the both side also. So the pupil who is in the downside and who have the well in the downside, so they are very much interested and very much encouraging, and they say, oh yes, that water come in my well and my agriculture is prosperous. So the community, if we are discussing in a right direction with the community, so the community is also helping for the right decision and for the execution of the work. I never take the money from any government, and we create the 13,800 water bodies. I can't create without community. So if you understand the science of the underground aquifer and you show the visual impact, the water is really showing the visual impact after some time. So they see, oh, downstream recharging with this water body, so we can make a continuous in downstream. So the continuity of the water bodies is most important recharging the aquifer. But we need a motivation and direction, both motivation and direction for the community, and community come forward. I never feel trouble with the community. Yes, sometimes taking the time, they are not unanimously every time agree. But yes, if you can make your flow slow and you can flowing with the community, so the community understand and they are taking decision and they are joined. So my life is always happy with the community and the community decision and selection of the site. The selection of the site is the most important. And the most important, the character or the underground aquifer out there.
Right. So that education.
If you know that, you can make convenient to community.
That science education sounds like that's a key part of getting that community engagement. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. And that was another one I noticed in the talk that I think is interesting. The idea of that conservation in the way that you're talking about it is capturing that water out in the environment, and then water use efficiency or effective use of water. Those two things together are water literacy. And it sounds like some of that conversation with the community as you work to pick locations and develop an understanding of whose effort will benefit who. That's all part of that water literacy effort, that campaign.
Yes, 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 you are right. You are right.
Yeah. I really love, I've taught like basic geography for a long time, Rajendra, and I just loved red heat, green heat, blue heat. It's not a way I've ever heard anyone talking about those systems. Is that something that was created through your educational efforts, or is that a more common way of talking about it in your culture?
No, this is my experience in the for decade in the reason. Before I not understand when this work is start, but I seen the when the that area is completely barren, so the red heat also creating the clouds in the Arabian Sea, and that clouds come. But due to the heat waves, that clouds go away and the pressure of the air in the down. So without rains, they are moving toward too far away. So no rains in my region. And sometimes the cloud is brushed. One clouds come this side and that side. So they are the flood. So these scenario I realize in last 40 years. So now I seen where the green heat coming and that clouds come and giving the rains. So the red heat come from the sun and the change make in by the Arabian Sea or by the sea anywhere or by the water anywhere in a change in a blue heat, or you can say the evaporated water, and that evaporated water making the clouds, and that clouds moving always toward to the green heat, where the green heat, because there is the also heat, but that heat with O2, with oxygen, and the red heat no gases, and blue heat with H2O, that is the gas is also H2O, that is the cloud. So these H2O moving toward to the O2. So that is a interrelation with the water and with the climate and with the heat. So this blue red heat comes from sun, blue heat changed by ocean or by water bodies, and green heat created by the forest or by the greenery of crop. At the yellow heat, yellow heat is the saxology of water and sun, and that is creative production, the agriculture. So that is a really, the yellow heat. Yellow heat is a productive heat. Productive heat. So this is only the fourth type of the heat I realize in my region in last 40 years. That is not a book. That book is not teaching like this. This is a very simple way, and I learn from my experience, and this is my experience.
It is a wonderful way of describing it, and I think it resonates with non-experts too in a way that makes a lot of sense. It's that combination of science and common sense that you were talking about a few moments ago. One of the things that's true in our landscape, and this is Monique's question, here we have private property holders and we have sort of legal and regulatory relationships between who can use the water when. Are those features of your challenge too? Who owns the land and who has the right to use the water? And do you have to overcome those challenges, or is it different in your culture?
No. In the beginning, I facing these challenges. But when the water literacy move start, and we are saying we have the right on water equally, everyone. Though those not have the land, but they have the right on water. And the right of the river is also on water. The right of the river also on water. So if we conserve, we catch the clouds and conserve the rains and putting in the underground aquifer and recharging the aquifer, and that water come up again for our drinking. So my first condition, Mick, we are only working where the people is giving the equal right on water. If the people is not ready on the equal right on water, I'm not working for it. So this is my first condition. So due to this condition, the everyone joining, everyone joining, and they say he is the Fakkad Baba. He, he know he have the equal respect to the nature and equal respect to the humankind. So he have the equal respect both. So the ownership, the landlords, and they don't have the land, they all join this movement. So this is the important factor. The water is not only for the landlords. The water for the life of the tree, of the wildlife, of the humankind. So we can give the drinking water freely for everyone, for the tree, for the wildlife, for the youth. So this is my heart, and I'm working with this heart. So I'm very happy and no problem. My experience in last the 2015 and 2016 and 2017. I visit your California, the Ons River. Ons River start from Mono Lake and meet to the Los Angeles, down of the Los Angeles. The whole river I walk in 15, 16, and 17. Every year I give the 20 days. So I know your Ons River and California region. So there is some struggle with the indigenous community and landlords. But I that time also suggest to the landlords, you are happy and you have the right on water, but the nature have also the right on water. So we can give the equal respect to the humankind, landlord, and nature, and we can give the solution. So that time lot of discussion, but little difficult, taking time, taking time. But solution is possible.
Indira, I see your hand is raised. Is that an old hand or do you have something to contribute now too?
Yes.
Sorry, that was an old hand.
Oh, that's
I'll
okay.
remove it.
That's
I'll
okay.
remove it.
Rajendra, has your work taken you to urban landscapes? Have you worked in or with cities, and what to do?
yeah.
What to do in those spaces where the land is even more disturbed?
Yes, I work in a so many urban area like Pune. Pune is a very urbanized region. There is a river called Motha. That river is a before a perennial clean flow. Now is a very dirty river, and the encroach the land by the government. The government uh, create a railway line in the land of river, and they are creating the both side walls and encroaching the land of river of Arwari. So we fight against the government. This land is related with the river. This land not related with the government. So now this is also continuously working, and the lot of work done by the plastic. The every where the plastic going to the river. So we motivate to the childrens of the school, student of the school, students, and lot of movement of the student for the against the plastic. So that is a different experience. And the one experience is in Mumbai. Mumbai is a financial capital of India. So there is a 5 river before, and that river is before is a clean and continuous flow. Now they are don't not river. Now they are the drain, the dirty water of industry, only the dirty water flowing of industry, and that water going to the sea. So we are starting the making clean river, and the very good news for you, the very interesting news. Just 20 days before, my government of India and government of Maharashtra, they are making a great function for 75 year of the after independence, and they called Amrit Mahotsav. Amrit mane holy water, clean water. So I told the holy water is flowing in the river. But today is not a single river in India where I can say the clean flow in the river. Just the small river where we originating, so there is some clean water where we are originating the river. But the other is the industrial pollution and sewage pollution. So we can make a program with the government and with the community, the everywhere. 109 rivers in Maharashtra, they are making it a very big river walk, and they are understanding the river. They are understanding the flow and the character of the river, and that is a very big movement for the river literacy, and linking our head, our heart, and our hand with river. That is the movement. Now we start in Maharashtra. We are in a very big way, and I can say that is a very great seed of hope for my country, if my country can learn from this movement. So some good work we are doing with the urban area also in a different way.
Sure, that's wonderful. Yeah, one of the folks in chat was asking about sort of stormwater or sort of rainwater capture in cities, and I saw, Indira, you had an answer about rainwater harvesting. Do you want to talk a little bit about the kinds of urban rainwater harvesting that you're familiar with in your country?
Yes, very much familiar. You know, in 95, I started in the urban area rooftop harvesting, because in India the different layer of the house is now moving like this. So the some water on the roof, and we first beginning start with the rooftop harvesting. Now we are starting in the surface harvesting also in the urban area. And the Chennai, the first commissioner, Santa Sila Nair. So she is our friend, very old friend of mine. So I request to her, you make it mandatory for the every house can rainwater harvesting. She start in a very successful way, and I can say now is the law is a lot of cities rooftop harvesting and surface harvesting. But you know, sorry to say, not the government law is not everywhere executed. So some corruption, I can say what I can say. That is very difficult to say.
Sure. Just because you make it a rule doesn't mean everyone follows it. I understand. Yeah. Indira, I wonder if you have something to add about urban stormwater capture. Indira?
Yes, I think one of the just couple of points to add on to what Dr. Singh mentioned. I think another movement that's happening is looking at the revival of urban water bodies and urban lakes, which are inspired by the work that has been happened in Rajasthan under Tarun Bharat Sangh. So the community is getting together and they're looking at the original maps of the surface water bodies, the tanks, the lakes, identifying where the encroachment is, coming together, creating a buzz in the media, doing the desiltation and other work, so that these tanks and ponds and lakes are revived. So there are many cities in India, in different states, which have taken inspiration from this work. And I think I'd just like to reinforce, Mike, what you said about water literacy, and which Dr. Singh mentioned about what's happening in Maharashtra, where you're walking along the river. Because I think sometimes people don't know the mistakes they're making. Sometimes people don't know what to do to rectify the mistakes. And so when you create water literacy, when you understand the water body, when you walk along the water body, then I don't know, this whole transformation in your thinking and your action happens. So I think water literacy is something that is really critical for as a foundation for sustainable water conservation and use.
Thanks, Indira. I really like that. Sometimes people don't know the mistakes they are making. That's I guess it's something that all of us know when you say it. Of course, that's true, but it is something to reflect on. I think that's really wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And the idea of urban water bodies and working on to recover some of them is something that is happening here and there in California, but not perhaps to the extent that you're thinking about it. With just a few minutes left in our time, I want to make sure anyone else that was holding on to a question that wants to voice it, give you an opportunity to. Horacio, I saw you come on to video. Is that because you wanted to make a contribution, or was it just you had the availability to join us?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead if you have a question or a contribution.
Yes, in California, we have lots of farming, 4-5 crops per year. The aquifers are getting depleted every year, and the amount of recharge is very little. So how do we capture the water when the drought is keep moving forward, and the amount of water that they're using every year is the same? So how do we get the farmers to be together and contribute to recharge and have more water in the rivers and in the creeks?
Thanks, Horacio. Rajendra?
Yes, I think your country have the enough water, but water when the rain's coming, the all water flood going to the rivers or to the sea. So when the rains is coming, we capture the water from the ridge and moving to valley. So if where the water is running, we can make a structure and capture that water and recharging the aquifer. So I can say one thing, if we identify nicely the aquifer and we catch the rainwater and putting the underground aquifer. So the California is a state where you can stop the evaporation loss. The water recharging the aquifer and that water is not moving for the not loss of the by the aquifer, by the evaporation. So I can say one thing, just understand the aquifers, character of aquifers, and the typology of the soil and typology of the geology. If we can understand, so we can recharge the aquifer. And I know you have the more rains comparative of Rajasthan and the desert of India, more rains comparative of my region. So if I can grow the 2-3 crops everywhere, good agriculture now we are growing. So you can also make a system there. But we decide one hand the conservation of water, harvesting and recharging, and other hand skill development in efficient use of water. So the both simultaneously, conservation and harvesting and skill development of efficient use of water, so you can get success in the water.
And Rajendra, I really hear in that answer, and Horatio, I think maybe, and what's so powerful about the things you can share with us, Rajendra, is the impact of 35 years of effort. And I think setting ourselves on a path to have a similar success story 30 years from now is the way to be thinking about it, that this is a long effort of lots of small impacts across a broad area with lots of people involved that will add up to a sustainable path. I think is what I hear, and maybe that's the answer to you, Horatio, is that every small act will eventually accumulate into a big impact.
Yes, yes. Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
thank you. Just one thing, a lot of the farming community here, we allow the water to go out of the fields. I think if we can harvest it within the fields, we will be using less water when we irrigate those fields because you have a lot of humidity. So we need to make sure that the farmers cooperate in doing that.
Yes,
Thank-
if you conserve the rainwater, so the soil moisture is very long time sustainable in the down on the soil. So now, by the rainwater conserving and harvesting, we can maintain the moisture in the soil in a natural way. And that is, if you come in India and visit my region, without irrigation, I am growing the mustard gram in this season of winter, and the season of summer I am growing arhar, the pulses, moong and other and another, and the millets without irrigation, and the very healthy food. So I think this is the need now for the natural way of conserving the moisture by the rainwater.
Well, Rajendra, we have about 5 minutes left, and I see Elizabeth just came with a question. Maybe we can handle that question quickly, Elizabeth, because we do have a few closing things to do. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you. This has been wonderful. I think sort of building on what Horatio says, that, using agricultural fields to do recharge is something we're interested in Northern California. What we're finding in our rural area is the expense of fuel, of moving that water is, who bears that expense? Is it the water district with the water right, or the farmers? And then of course the carbon impact on that. So that would be something maybe for another time to talk about.
I mean, Elizabeth, those kinds of conversations are exactly what the FloodMAR network is seeking to have. And we're sponsored today by the People and Water Committee, but there's a large group, I think nearly 100 people that are consistently part of the FloodMAR network, which gathers around topics just like that one to think through solutions, to discover where other people's ideas or other people's challenges are aligned with yours, and seeing what you can build together. So I think that's a good one, perhaps, to put on our to-do list to talk about amongst the network. Rajendra, before we say goodbye, I know yourself and Indira have a new book out that was released recently. I don't know if it's yet been published, but I'm curious if you want to just quickly mention it, and if there's any way that people who are here that are interested in purchasing that book, how they might get a hold of it.
Yes, Indra, you can send that book, the second new book. Today, she complete the second part of that book. So she send you by email or by WhatsApp, and when this printed, so we send you.
Okay, deal. Go ahead, Indira.
Yeah. So Mike, the book which Dr. Singh released in Stockholm in August this year, the title, it's a very small book. The title is Rejuvenation of Rivers, Climate Resilience, Livelihoods, Dignity, Living Examples. It's not a prize publication. So we just did it out of our passion and the need to share. It was very energizing for us to write that also. And just one last point I have to add here, that we saw in an area which people were earlier resorting to dacoity because there was no water. They actually dropped their weapons and took on water conservation efforts. So if in such a difficult scenario and such a difficult community, if change can happen, I think we are convinced it can happen anywhere. So this is the title of the book. I can share it with you on mail, and it would be great if you could share it with others. And in that, we have also invited people like you and others to come and look at the work, give us your suggestions, give us your impressions, give us your analysis. That will only help us also to improve what we are doing. And I will send you this. It's a 10-page epilogue on what what was written earlier. Basically, looking at how, if you want to have climate mitigation, adaptation, and resilience, water is key. And why we say water is key, Dr. Singh mentioned here, but that book is capturing that in a few words. So I'd be delighted to share that with you on email as well.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you already sent me a copy, but I didn't want to presume that I was allowed to send it further along.
No, please.
It is wonderful. So we'll find a way to make that available to everyone here. The last thing I'm going to do before I turn this back over to Arit to close us out is in the chat. I am sending a link to the organization where Rajendra and Indira work, and you can learn more about that nonprofit, and the ways that it raises resources to do its work are all available on that website if anyone wants to learn more there. And I have to say, I feel so grateful that we met so many years ago and that you're available to join our conversations again today. And both of you, thank you from the bottom of my heart, which you taught me how to bring into my work. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Indraji.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everyone. Thanks, Mike, for leading us in an amazing conversation, and for Rajendra Singh and Indira Khurana. It's been really inspiring. Really appreciate your thoughts. It really brought to mind the importance of humility and our responsibility to be good stewards of nature, of water, and just coming back to those very basic principles of how we are as people coming together and managing water. So a lot to think about. Really appreciate it. And of course, we'll follow up with some of the information that was shared on chat. And if you are not part of the FloodMAR network and you would like to join us, please let me know in the chat. Just add your name or email, and we'll continue these important conversations. So have a wonderful rest of the day, and good evening to our faraway guests. Really appreciate you being with us today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's really hard to leave such a great conversation.
I know. I have pages and pages of questions.
It feels so harsh to just turn off a Zoom.
Right, you break up and sort of stand around and talk for a while in the room.
Yeah, right.
Right.
If we were all together, we would be able to debrief, but yeah.
Yeah.
All the side conversations.
Thanks, Mike, for making this happen. It's just an awesome conversation and great moderating and continuing this conversation. Really, really great questions.
Maybe I'll get to go to India. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, if you need someone to help you with your, carrying your luggage or anything.
I know,
yeah. Yeah, so actually, Mike, if you can, whatever you have to share that we should kind of put into one package to share with everyone, if you can help me with that.
I want to
email out.
Yeah, I'm going to email Indira just to confirm that this is a free resource. And then, because I have a PDF of the book, although I heard Rajendra suggest that there's another piece that just got finished. So I want to make sure I have the right full thing. But yeah, it'd be great to be able to share that.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I know there's some things in the chat.
I definitely would like to dig into the organization a little bit, because I'm wondering, like, how
an organization, an NGO that's kind of structured around this concept of FloodMAR, like what services they provide, how people engage in the NGO, and that there's things within it as training, that climate literacy or that water literacy, if there's things that we can bring into the network and say, these are some of the activities that, the network could also be doing as well.
And
Yeah.
it seems to me like so much of it is laying that foundation and getting everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
So how do you share information? I mean, the whole kind of framing of the issues and the needs, both of people and nature, and getting that kind of a buy-in from everyone. So it seems so critical. I'm thinking about Meredith's presentation tomorrow at LunchMar around data, and wondering if there's a way to think about how to use that information that is very technical and make it so it can really be consumed by your community members, so they can really understand the connection. Because I think to that question of doing something upstream, how do you bring those downstream into that conversation so they can be support for that, seems really critical.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, he did describe how important it was to understand your aquifer and where water was going and how it was moving, but not in a way that was so technical. So how do we kind of, he talked about that, bridging the human science with the, geology. So that's really interesting.
I get this feeling that our property law has like locked us in to an epistemology, like our mind, our the way we imagine the world starts with this property law.
Yeah.
And the idea of we together as a community want to change our landscape by acting upon the land is so attenuated in our system in a way that, at least in these presentations, it seems it isn't similarly attenuated in theirs. And maybe this is a sign of my urbanness, right? Because maybe in a more rural space in California, where a community is defined very clearly by not having a neighboring community, and they act as one, or they wrestle around trying to figure out how to act as one, maybe it's different. One of the things that I was really struck by is that in our FloodMAR universe, we've been mostly talking about the valley floor, like the unconfined aquifers. But it sounds like if we really like want to evaluate that run to walk to crawl up in the mountains, right? And whether a whole bunch more of checking the flow so that the plants and soil of the mountains hold on to more of it, so it runs out slower, and then trickles out slower. It's similar to the snow melt, right? What do you think, Daniel? Is that a thing that we've been missing?
Yeah, I mean, if we really want to talk about mountains, the ridge to groundwater, it's the mountain meadows, it's the forest health.
Right.
I think we're seeing it. We're being pushed into seeing it as we see our forests burn and then repopulate with fewer stands. And there's a lot of groups working on that. In fact, we had the tribal elder from the Paiute, I think, or Mono tribe. He is doing this kind of work right now. We had him in one of our webinars at Sustainable Conservation speak about forest water management. And it was, in a sense, it's very similar to what we just heard today, but from a traditional Native American perspective. So having Chairman Ron Good speak could be a nice complement to this, perhaps with a forest manager. Because Ron speaks about it very much similar to the way Rajendra talked, in a way that's accessible, maybe not as scientific, but it's, translating those two worldviews about the same management could be a really interesting contrast, because he clearly talks about forest management as part of our water cycle.
Yeah, it got me thinking, we've kind of had this like small FloodMAR program at DWR, but it got me thinking, like, the conversation is so much bigger that I wonder if, like, it's more about a rainwater harvesting program and the actions that you can do at the urban and suburban scale, the ag scale. FloodMAR is part of that, and the upper watershed management. Like, that, I think, is like a little bit of the change in some of the conversation or thinking is, it's not something that the department really thinks about in a major way. So I'm like thinking about, like, how do I fit FloodMAR into kind of a larger concept at the department that more of our programs could get behind.
I mean, integrated water management and really the FloodMAR image,
Yeah.
shows things. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's precluded from being part of it.
No, I feel like
institutionally, it's just not.
One of, yeah, and yeah, I mean, because the one element of flood, so FloodMAR is in response to the snow to rain transformation, right?
Right.
And so that snow to rain transformation, it is a flood risk, but it's also a water supply risk. The water supply risk is the speed at which the precipitation moves, right?
Yeah.
And so if we were thinking about flood protection as a mechanism for slowing down the water, right, as opposed to protecting people from fast water, but slowing down the water as the way we thought about it, and maybe that's the way flood does think about it. I haven't spent a lot of time with flood people over the years, but part of me thinks that my instinct has been that the sort of traditional path is to imagine that floods are inevitable, so therefore we must shelter from them, as opposed to floods can be mitigated, which is the meadow and forest restoration mindset, right? Which is we could do something in the mountains to diminish the likelihood of a flood.
I think one of the big challenges is in our geology of granite mountains, we are going to have more runoff than you would in a fractured, limestone system like India.
Yeah.
So there's a certain amount we can do. I don't know how much we can slow it, but there's certainly a fraction that we must be able to slow.
Yeah.
The other piece I wanted to come back to was with this association. You asked the question, Jenny, and welcome back too, by the way, Jenny. It's nice to see you.
Oh yeah.
Just here too.
Yeah. One of the key phrases I'm seeing in their website is it's about community self-reliance.
Yeah.
And it made me think about GSAs. GSAs are the structure that we've set up for self-reliance. And there's my question that I asked Rajendra was about sort of really trying to get at the haves and have-nots, or the beneficiaries versus those that take action. And I think there could be a lot more water literacy or communication amongst sub-basin stakeholders, that the GSAs ultimately have to be responsible for the entire sub-basin. And in all the conversation I have, it's all about my portion of the basin, my GSA's portion, not the basin. And I think if DWR and the Water Board stick by the rules of Sigma, it will push folks to realize that they have to think self-reliantly at that basin scale. I mean, it's still a government approach, a top-down driven pressure, as opposed to what they've done is build it from the bottom up for your own well-being. But given our system, if we could turn water literacy into thinking more about the sub-basin success, I think that's a direction. I think about some of the materials that the Farm Bureau has developed. There've been some sort of easy to access knowledge document or presentations, but for the most part, I think most landowners, community members do not understand the whole basin concept, the shared basin.
And
it seemed to be what he was pitching.
Yeah, I mean, I would add to that, Daniel, I think, is that we need the other direction too, right? Is that we have a lot of water technocrats, not meant pejoratively, that don't understand the community at all, right? And like the reason why water literacy for literacy's sake is very rarely successful in my experience. Like teaching the layperson about the complexity of water is very rarely successful when the goal is just to have them know it, right?
Okay.
When the goal is in service to something that the community cares about, like
Yeah.
I wish our kids had a sustainable future here, right? I wish it wasn't a boom bust cycle for my job. I wish I had clean water at the tap, right? Like when you start from a community goal and you find yourself teaching about the groundwater basin because it's relevant to that
Yeah.
goal, it's
Yeah.
much more useful or much more likely to be received.
Yeah.
And so I think, yeah, anyway, people in water subcommittee, right?
Yeah,
That's
that's
what we're here for.
I think the special sauce of that's missing in Sigma. We forced a community on people,
Yeah.
and it wasn't ground up where they all came together with a common goal and purpose. We kind of said, here's the people that you work with, here's what your objective should be. So, now kind of reversing that again and being like, this is your role and water's role in the system and how you can come together for the benefit of all. That's kind of the change in conversation. And I think, you could definitely hear in Dr. Singh's, in the words that he used in his speaking and how he brings, he's an Ayurvedic doctor. He thinks in systems, he thinks holistically. And so things come together and they all impact each other. And so how do we balance that for the good of the system? And that's what we're missing. We didn't start from there.
Yeah,
and
what
bring that back in.
And what the system is too, Jenny, right? Like if the system we're trying to solve is a unconfined aquifer and the water that stores in it, right? Like that's different than if the system we're trying to save is a social ecological community, right? Which is a bunch of people's livelihoods and their farm and their food, right? And if Sigma is in service of people's livelihood and their food supply, that is a different conversation than if it is in service of groundwater health.
Yeah, right? Yeah. No, that's a.
Yep. All right, I have to go do relatively mundane things the rest of the day. It's going to be very hard.
Thanks for this debrief together.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging around, Daniel.
Thanks, Mike, again for getting us all connected. And just one last thing, Mike.
Sure.
When you reach out, can you ask permission for us to use the recording on our newly formed website?
Yes, I will.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll follow
I
up.
will indeed.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
See you tomorrow.
Bye. Yep.
Yeah. See you tomorrow.